the second aircraft carrier group has made its way. Pretty sure I set up live chat here. Maybe I didn't. In any case, it's very similar to what Putin did before his Ukraine invasion, where he positioned units, claimed they were training, and then pulled them back, put them forward, pulled them back, and kept doing that repeatedly. And then all of a sudden, boom, the war popped off. And he kind of got everyone used to moving his troops around the border. Same thing China's doing right now as well. But the presence of the extra carrier groups, to me, is the pre-positioning. Hey, good morning, Devil Dog. Pre-positioning of units, right? Hey, Joe, good morning. We've got F-15 Strike Eagles just landed in Jordan. You have A-10 Warthogs, I don't remember if they were in Italy or Sicily or somewhere like that. Units that are not normally there are all arriving now. And I think, again, we're witnessing the pre-positioning of units for something, in preparation for something greater. Don't know, Joe. Don't know yet. But what bothers me most is the arrogance of the leaders, right? So during the weekend, our president was asked, can we handle a two-front war? We can't handle our own economy right now. And he says, of course we can. We're the United States of America, which is what a leader should say, right? We're awesome. But Russia's saying it too. Iran's saying it. Israel's saying it. Everyone's saying it. And this arrogance. Hey, Coffee. Hey, Jim. If I missed anyone, I apologize. Hey, Jess. Hey, Wolfgang. Buenos dias. The arrogance of the leaders, I think, is more concerning to me than the placement of military units, right? You place a military unit for precaution, right? Oh, you did something. It's a show of force, right? Counting Arunga. Yeah, I missed part of what you said there, Joe, but yeah, it's essentially, if you guys read about World War I, right, before the war popped off, a lot of people think they killed the Archduke, World War I. Actually, it was very drawn out. Before that, hey, KP, what's going on? Before that, there had been months, if not years, of little fights between the Serbians and the Austrians, the Azeris and the Armenians, the baby genocides and little ethnic attacks back and forth all over the map, all over the Baltics mainly. Prior to that incident, that's what pushed the button, but everything was there, right? It wasn't even the icing on the cake. The Archduke was just the candle on top. All the other stuff was below, and there were economic issues. There were an arms race between. Yes, exactly, Joe. World War I was not something that started when the Archduke just died. Hey, be safe. Hey, Cold War. It happened over a period of time, over years, as Joe pointed out. There were little skirmishes, Germany and France and Britain. And the irony is the Tsar, the Kaiser, and the King of England were cousins, right? They were all related, which just makes it worse, because you look at a lot of our leaders now, and they're not necessarily related by blood, but they're related by bankers and the circles they hang out with, the WEF, the WHO, all these other entities. But the arrogance of the way the leaders are speaking, you're not hearing, we can handle what we need to handle, but we want peace because, we don't need people getting killed. It's not. It's a lot of chest-thumping bullshit. I'm seeing the same pattern. The arrogance when World War I kicked off, when it officially started getting declared, the Archduke got killed. There was a period of time, I think it was about 2 months, where there was diplomatic crap going back and forth, and then countries started declaring war on each other. Then units got mobilized. It was this drawn-out nonsense. And it wasn't an instantaneous thing the way people think war is now, that you just magically show up with soldiers. And at the time, every country was like, Russia will prevail, we'll be home by Christmas. England will prevail, we'll be home by Christmas. And then years later, the shit was still going on. It destroyed large swaths of Europe. There's sections of France you can't farm right now because they're still finding mines and ordnance, not from World War II, but from World War I, right? And, people actually go out there with mine detectors to try and find old relics. And they have to get a permit and everything. It's just really weird. You're seeing that same arrogance, that same tone with our leaders today. And I think that's something that bothers me. So right now, the Senate, apparently as of last night, has declared that they're going to try and pass a bill stating that if Iran punches Israel, the U.S. is going to go kick Iran, basically. Now, Russia's already said, no, we support Iran. Egypt doesn't like Iran, but they don't like Israel either, per se. They just, have agreements to be nice. I don't know where they're going to fall. Those same overlapping commitments paired with the arrogance of the leaders is something that really bothers me. Oh, yeah, no, Joe, absolutely. They're the ones who brought, I believe it was Lenin, who had been exiled from Russia, gave him money and some guns and sent him back into Russia. Because he was in Switzerland or Sweden. He got run off by the Tsar's people. They brought him back. And then, of course, that was their own nightmare because, here's World War II and the communists came and sacked Berlin pretty much. They created their own monster there. But the arrogance of these leaders, was it Switzerland? All right. The arrogance is what bothers me because they act like there's no consequence. To be fair to the potato in chief right now, his son did serve. His son died from chemical exposure in Iraq. Sadly, the son he's left with now is a crackhead. But, they're acting like there's no consequence to what they're saying and what they're doing. People keep saying, oh, the war in Ukraine will be over quickly. No, Russia is the master of wars of attrition. They fought a 20-year war with the Kingdom of Sweden at the time, which was rather powerful, for 18 years and beat them purely on the basis of wore them down for 18 years and made them broke. Well, yeah, exactly, Joe. And these are the things that bother me because right now, again, we've got carrier groups, Iran, everyone's got units in the area flying around. We've got that area. We have Azerbaijan and Armenia threatening to fight with each other. You've got a pro-Russian president about to take office, or premier or prime minister in Hungary, which is technically a NATO power. Turkey has said they will not support Israel if they attack Gaza on the ground. Where are all the chips going to fall if something gets worse? And to me, that's bothersome because ultimately it's the working class folks of all these countries that have to send their sons and daughters into harm's way and get killed. Back in the Civil War, there was a $200 draft fee. If you had the money, you could pay the $200 and your son was exempted from serving in the Civil War. Well, $200 back then was a phenomenal amount of money. It was a gold-backed currency back then. So, yeah, that basically was a tax for the rich to get off the hook. Now it's, if you're in college, you don't get drafted. So it's kind of the same thing because if you're really poor, you're not going to college unless you get a scholarship. So, again, it's going to be disproportionately the working class folks across the country. And this isn't a color thing because in Vietnam, it may not. Joe, I think you're right. I'd rather myself and my son fight tyrants here. Yeah, absolutely, Nunya. I think it's going to be a very, and I think Cold War touched on it, that fifth generation warfare. It's not going to be big armies duking it out. It's going to be regional fights. But that's how World War I started. There were a lot of little regional fights. Now, the one thing in everyone's favor is communication is phenomenally better, right? For instance, hypothetically, the president can get on the red phone or the blue phone, whatever the hell it is, and call Putin directly and have a conversation. He can call President Xi and have a conversation. Back in World War I, if the Tsar and the King of England wanted to talk, the Tsar had to write a letter, seal it, stamp it, give it to a courier. The courier put it in a diplomatic pouch, got on a train, then on a boat, went to England, presented it to the ambassador. The ambassador presented it over. Hey, Dan. Then the King of England read it. Then he wrote his response. Then he sealed that, and the process went the other way. So a conversation that Putin and Biden could have in half an hour took them 2 months because it was just going back and forth. Will it expand? It's hard to say. I don't think anyone wants that because that shit's going to come home to everyone. The Israelis experienced it in their streets. Gaza's experiencing it right now. Ukraine is experiencing it, and so is Russia, right? It's in their streets. It's not on a battlefield somewhere. I have no reason to believe if things escalate, you wouldn't have asymmetric hits here. And when I say here, I mean the USA, Canada, even Mexico, right? Because Mexico is our trade partner. You could hurt Mexico and screw the US up. Right, Joe. And again, it's modern, different days now, cell phones and whatnot. But you would think the leaders could communicate. Or same continues. Yeah, Nunya, exactly. So that's what I'm watching. I'm watching this Senate bill because it seems like they want to set it up to pull us into this shit. We can support Israel if we choose to and not get into it with Iran, right? We could give money, we could cut funding off to Iran or screw with their economy somehow and hurt them. Cold War, that's Tom Clancy's Summer of All Fears. That's exactly, the movie didn't do the book any justice. Actually, if you watch the movie Sicario, it starts off with that very premise, that Hamas, or it was an entity, like some Islamic entity, uses the cartel's routes to enter the country. And Joe's got a busy day today. Don't hurt your back, man. Yeah, I don't see a foreign country coming here, not like an invasion, like the Mexican-American War or the War of 1812. It would be people who are already here doing shit, causing crap to cause problems for us. My concern is these guys are going to drag us in a war with a lot of political posturing, not really thinking ahead of their noses as to how it's going to affect us later. Hey, Jersey Shore. Doing good, doing good. These are things I'm going to pay attention to because the rhetoric, the positioning of units, we're not the only ones doing it. I know the Russians are doing it. We're just not hearing about it. We all know that media's spinning according to what they think they should be doing, not necessarily the true facts of the issue on the ground. There's a lot going on we don't see. Again, I guess this to me is personal that I have 2 sons in uniform. One just got out, but he's definitely IRR. He can get pulled back in. And for what? So hopefully, on the flip side, funding someone else's war could help our economy, which is kind of a terrible thing to say, but it's true. Joe, those conflicts there between Russia, Ukraine, and Germany and that's some ancient shit. That's like the Middle East. They've been fighting for centuries back and forth. What concerns me the most is the political dealings in the background are going to get us dragged into something that our leaders are not understanding. And if they think we're impervious, Israel was supposed to be like the Iron Dome and shit. And Hamas went way low tech with motorcycles and damn paragliders. and stupid off-the-shelf drones and did a lot of damage. And I'll bet you they were watching what Ukraine is doing and went, we can do that with drones. We can take out all those damn towers with 50 caliber machine guns on them using drones. And they did. Now, whether Israel failed intelligence, whether they let it happen to justify attacking Gaza, whether the Iranians hacked them, regardless of what happened in the background, it was a very simple, low-tech, but well-coordinated attack. You know, they were getting on this professor who said it was militarily it was successful. I think it was. I think Hamas, now I don't know what their end game was, but the attack, the way they executed, how they got in, was impressive. It actually, I was impressed by how low tech and quick it was. And they were very effective. Israel was not prepared for that. So those are the kind of things that could come home, right? You get a guy with a drone, goes attacks fuel tanks at an airport or a refinery and freaks out the American people. Most of our people in the USA would roll up under their beds and cry. It's changing the Marine Corps. No, Dan, honestly, the graybeards, we'd wind up in civil defense shit. Exactly, Joe, but it was original and it was well done. They took the best parts of what the Ukrainians are doing, what Hezbollah did, all these other groups, and they said, let's take all these little pieces and put them together. Their cartels are notorious for the motorcycle attacks. They did some homework. They're like, yeah, we can use the motorcycles from the cartel, the drones the Ukrainians use, and let's throw something high-tech in. Let's go paragliders, because nobody will see that shit on a radar because it's too small. But anyway, folks, that's concerning me, is that Senate push to tie us to a course of action with Iran if they attack Israel. That kind of stupidity, the arrogance, we have millions of people here that don't belong here. We only need a couple of hundred or 1,000 of them to cause harm, right? Pay attention to your area. If you see something really jacked up, call it in. I just find it ironic they keep saying, you know, the gun owners in America are the threat. No. Because if something like the Hamas attack happened here, everyone would be going to the gun owner's house to get protection. So it's kind of funny. Right. It'll just be a quagmire, and it's going to end badly for everyone. Who's going to win? The people in Iran aren't going to win, right? The Americans will B-52 the shit out of them. So what they're going to do is blow up shit in America, and it's just going to get ugly. It's not going to be a battlefield war the way we think of it. And Cold War had a good point. It's going to be drones, hackers, technology, stuff like that. These overlapping commitments, these the arrogance of the leaders, the regional skirmishes, they smell a lot like World War I. Economic issues, bad harvests, all sorts of stuff, just before everything popped off. Yeah, we are, Jim. They don't like us at all. That's my concern. Like, how many nations are going to get jacked up, even if it doesn't come to the US of A? And it will. How many other nations are just going to be devastated in regional conflicts because of this stupidity? But I think if anything happens within the NATO countries, it could happen in the US. I bet you it'll happen in Europe first. I think Joe's spot on there. You know, so folks, there's not much we can do. We can prepare. You can understand how this affects supply chain. You can understand how this affects the economy, inflation, and then react accordingly. If you know, for instance, they're going to block the Suez Canal, and we know, I don't know, I'm just throwing fake numbers out there, 50% of rice comes through the Suez, well, you may want to buy some rice in case that pops off. You know, there's not much you can do. Just understand what's happening. Understand how it can affect us at home. Now, obviously, we have Hamas running around, Dallas or some shit, or, you know, Indiana or Idaho, running around one of the cities shooting people. That's a whole different issue. I don't think they're going to come after a state that has a lot of gun owners. They're going to go after somewhere like LA, New York. And New York's counterterrorism is really spot on. They got a good counterterrorism team. But you got a lot of people, right? So the cops are going to have to maneuver through the civilians. And that makes it more difficult. LA is just a big puff. Basically, if terrorists showed up there, the people would just freak and die, because they wouldn't know how to react. Other places, probably not so much. Hey, Pilgrim. So again, let's see what happens with this Senate bill. It may not pass. It may be a resolution of support. They may tone it down. This is typically what happens. Someone proposes something really puffed up, and then they tone it down by the time it gets to the floor. So, well, it depends what part of LA, Joe, right? You're not going to go to the South Side and go pick fights with the Latin Kings, right? Or the Crips and Bloods. No, you're going to go to the bougie side and freak out the rich people. So it's not the basics, it's the other stuff. Man, Dan, my body armor was a flak jacket. Like, I didn't even have a plate carrier. I wish I'd have kept that damn thing. I had to turn it in. I should have claimed that it was broken or something. Anyway, yeah, some old school shit. God. Anyway, folks, watch what's happening. And again, I don't like the feeling, because this is very reminiscent of what we read in World War I. And remember, World War I did not pop off with the Archduke. There was a build-up period. And then once the Archduke was killed, it was a justification. There was still months, weeks and months went by before things happened. So let's see where this goes. But yeah, our leaders need to have a more open-minded view about what we get into and how we get into it. Yeah, that's exactly right, Joe. It was meant for shrapnel. It might slow down a pistol caliber, but any rifle you'd get hurt. So, in any case, folks, be safe out there. Be careful. Pay attention to what's going on. Absolutely, yeah. We cut off the oil supply. We were their net exporter because Saudi wasn't developed back then. And when we cut them off, that's when they started attacking. And they hit Pearl Harbor actually to prevent us from stopping them from hitting the Dutch East Indies, which is now Malaysia, because of all the oil and rubber there. So Cold War spot on. This could all be a resource fight, right? We don't know. Israel just found this massive gas and oil field in their drilling their drilling areas in the Med. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But folks, in any case, be smart, be safe, pay attention. Don't panic. It doesn't help. Right now, nobody's listed any credible threats. So if anyone does something, and Joe, I actually went to Pearl Harbor. That's going to be my next video now that I'm done with JFK. I just got to find the time to stitch it together and do it. But anyway, folks, be safe out there. Be careful. Thank you for joining me this morning. And just pay attention. Watch what's going on. I'm curious to see where that Senate bill is going to go. Hopefully it's simply becomes this and not something binding, because we got to fix our own house, right? We got to clean our shit first. But, there's that. Anyway, guys, be good, be safe out there. Be careful.